in your heart. People's chakras are really shut down at the moment. Don't you agree, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, I've got my own suspicions about the whole New Age movement because, so many fascinating things came up there. But as far as I'm concerned, the whole Luciferian agenda also is a Fabian agenda, and it's been running this country for well over a century. So, I come a bit from an academic or a literary point of view. So when I was looking at the works of Charles Darwin, Thomas Malthus, Friedrich Nietzsche, Nietzsche's pronouncement that God is dead was a fundamental change. The whole Darwin lies, about the origin of species. And the thing is, these are selected families from selected bloodlines that normally marry within each other. Like the Darwins would marry the Huxleys, and the Huxleys would marry the Wedgwoods. So basically, the whole thing about, there's so many things to unpick in what you said, but the whole Fabian agenda led to the New Age movement, which I think is deeply controlled by Lucifer worship. So when you talk about, you mentioned Charles Ledbetter and people like that who, obviously wrote about crossing the veil. These people do have access to esoteric knowledge. And there's a difference between esoteric knowledge, which is only accessible to the few, and exoteric knowledge. Now, for some reason, people like you and I can access esoteric knowledge. I always wondered why that would be, because I've time traveled and I can manifest, and I know about witches and stuff. I think it's because of my bloodline, which is only gypsy. But there's another thing where if you have a childhood, I'm not saying my childhood was anywhere as harrowing as yours, but it does cause you to disassociate, and you can have alters and identities. So, you've probably, I find it fascinating that you were doing these journeys at the same time, presumably, as holding down a job as an investigative journalist. And I'm wondering how you kind of managed to switch between these identities.
Well, what was interesting, and as you know, that court case is coming up, the Daily Mail versus Prince Harry, Elton John, Doreen Lawrence, where I'm being accused of illegal spying. Of course, they're not attacking me. I'm penniless. They won't get money out of me. But they're saying to the Mail, you used her, so, hey, pay us $1 million. I think they're demanding, I know Liz Hurley, wants about $3 million. God knows what Elton John wants. But I'm being accused of doing illegal spying. But, hey, no, sorry. What I did when I was on Fleet Street was I would be asked to do something. I would lay down, sleep, and keep a notebook beside, write down in the notebook what they wanted to know. When I woke up, I would know who to go to, what to say, nothing illegal either, to get that knowledge out of their minds, and then who to go to next. Now, the current me talking to you, I wouldn't know how to do that. I would have no clue. But a part of me did know and knew to tell me. So that was why I was, used by the Mail and the Sunday Times, and got, I'm not a goddamn phone hacker, but this is the people that are trying to get the money, well, not the celebrities, but the people around them, have to try and say, you did illegal things, but it's not the truth. It's not the fucking truth. That's what makes my blood boil. But hey-ho.
I completely get that. I mean, in a way, you're mind hacking because...
Yes, it's mind hacking.
It's possible to download files from another person. It's very interesting. The thing is, you have access to these gifts, and of course, they can't compute that. It's very difficult to rationalise.
They can't compute it. They can't compute it. You're right. And I did a blog about it, and they were like, "Oh, she's trying to say she used her psychic powers now. Shut up, bitch. You're a criminal." They said it politely in a posh way. But you're right. Their little minds can't fathom it. But it's not illegal. So they're not going to get the payouts. Sorry. I mean, mind hacking isn't illegal. Sorry. It just means good journalism.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, going to sleep at night is where you get information. So I try to, I've done a lot of channeling, but I don't kind of look for it really. It's like love, it appears, and then if you go looking for it, it doesn't. So I tend to take a back seat. So I've done, when I was writing my book, I was channeling month after month after month, and I had to stop because you end up, there's too much in your head. But I'm very interested in that whole process about people with fractured childhoods who then have these abilities. So often, like, when I was a kid, I was, tested a lot, and I know that the Freemasons and the intelligence services were very interested in getting hold of kids like me who've got like psychic abilities. And also, when you're coming from not only a gypsy background but a criminal background, and probably with you as well, Chrissie, you don't trust people very easily, and you can spot deception straight away. And I think one of the tenets of spying is that it is an occult activity, and we're all spying on each other to a certain extent, but there's people like you that can see the truth straight away. And all the stuff about Aldebaran and all that, I mean, it's all spot on, and Lucifer. And even the thing about the cinema, I found that really interesting because it triggered in me that when I was a kid in the late 50s, we used to go to Saturday morning flicks. Maybe it was before your time, but all these kids would be in the audience in these old cinemas. And I went to the one in Notting Hill Gate, the Coronet, that's where we lived. And what they do, they had people in the audience, which followed on from the mass observation that took place after the war. And it would be packed with screaming kids. And of course, there were a lot of war films, westerns, and they'd be analysing these children, looking at, see what made them cry, what made them laugh. The surveillance, the mass surveillance that started then was an extension of, the Nazis were just fine-tuning it. But also, this has been going on with H.G. Wells. The whole Fabian, the time travel stuff is absolutely fascinating because you can link it into Project Looking Glass, the current CIA project, where you can move between timelines. And I can do that, and you can probably do that. And time is not linear.
Yes, it's all happening all at once. But what I find interesting is people talk about the Nazis, and people were burned and that kind of thing. But they need to wake up to the fact that was supernatural beings. That was Lucifer and his armies they need blood. They need that pain energy. They eat it for some reason. I mean, I don't know why, but they do. But that's why it's happening now. That energy is still there. It's not just, it was the Germans. I mean, that's what Lebensborn was about, to bring out their hybrids. And their hybrids are operating, I mean, certainly ruling over us. So they're non-humans. They're non-humans that don't like us. They think that we're cattle. So,
That's correct. I mean, it's a vampiric energy, and all the wars are blood rituals, and, they do need constant wars. And people are cattle. I mean, they're injected and sprayed upon.
Yes.
And they don't have the ability to wake up because, especially I find, the most brainwashed people, as far as I'm concerned, are the British liberals or the English people, because what they've been doing, they've been watching all this programming from, like, as a kid, I'm aware of all the programming that's taken place. I've put in so many programs. And I think when you are an outsider, you're aware of the programs, but it's very difficult to say this to somebody who's got a normal brain function. And then you find that you're actually more akin to the elites or the reptilians because you can understand how they think. And you can understand that all these people, quite frankly, what are they for? They're disposable. And it's a very, it's the R complex way of thinking, which is awful. But in order to understand how they work, you need to get into their brain. And this is the whole eugenics program is being run out now. And this goes back to Victorian England, or the people you talk about, like Lewis Carroll, the White Rabbit stuff. A lot of it is deep occult symbolism, and it's all linked to A, eugenics, and B, paedophilia. So there's an undercurrent of that's been prevalent in the British ruling classes, certainly for a long time. And of course, it comes back to Knights Templars and things like that. So barrel worship, children worship, children sacrifice. Just look at the BBC. Obviously we won't go into too much stuff about that, but it's so ingrained in the elites, and of course the public haven't got a clue what's going on. They think these things are just one-offs. So.
Oh yes, I mean the BBC. They interviewed me last year about this thing with Sienna Miller. I was accused of ringing up her GP. Now, I was a private investigator since age 19. There's no way that, I would ever ring somewhere where calls are recorded to speak to her, a famous person's GP, pretending to be God knows who, and ask for her file. Well, firstly, GP surgeries don't have files. Secondly, your calls are recorded. You go to prison for 10 years. But this individual decided me for doing that. I didn't know anything about it. Turned out it was somebody else who'd actually done this particular thing, and they were paid £5,000. But I interviewed with the BBC, told them an awful lot, but that wasn't good enough for them. Because they had Sienna Miller, it was a program called Scandalous. It's piss poor, it's gone out already, nobody's been watching it. But because they had Sienna Miller, they wanted me to say I had rung up her GP. And I'd also been given by Rebecca Brooks Jude Law's number. And I'd rung up Jude Law, but not to speak about Sienna Miller. And so I did the interview. They wanted me to come back again. You've got to say sorry to Sienna Miller. You've ruined her life. She had an abortion because of you. What the actual fuck? Something I didn't do. And they wanted to trick me into saying it. So they got me out to some woodland. I was like on a really hot day. And they would say, just say sorry to her. Just say sorry to Sienna Miller. I ended up getting really angry. And I said, sorry, Sienna Miller. Sorry I was even born. And they were like, oh, that's really good. And I mean, it's just not... Sorry, It's really raining really heavily. It's not journalism.
No.
It's just not journalism. And I ended up feeling so bad because I had, I was given to married cousins. They were first cousins. They were married. They were linked to the church. His sister was one of the daughters of St. Paul of Rome. And he had sexually abused me. She had whipped me. And they put that onto me. You were a temptation. You were a temptation to your father. You're blonde. You say you were sexy. You were a temptation. I mean, I was fucking 6. And so to be falsely accused makes me feel suicidal. So they were triggering me into being suicidal.
Yeah.
So I actually, because it's a false accusation.
Absolutely.
I mean, I believe that if you've done things wrong, confess them. But when something's false, and I made a tape of myself, and they actually made me flip out. I ended up going to my adoptive parents' home, standing outside, trying to get in, even though they're dead and the house has been sold years ago, and just going into a child state. And I recorded myself and I sent it to them, and they got a counsellor, one of their in-house counsellors, to speak to me, and they said to the team, if you put that out, you're going to have blood on her hands, because I think that she will commit suicide over it. I wouldn't have done. I have a child, and I told the guy this, but it was making me feel that way. They were literally triggering me because they were interested in me having done this. It turned out, and I found out later, one of the executives from The Sun rang me and said, oh, that was this particular... I won't say her name, but it was someone else who had done it. And somebody, also I found out from another PI, this other person that's doing research for the lawyers, he knew that it wasn't me. And he said, she's easy to pin stuff on her. It's easy to pin stuff on her. She's got no money. She can't fight back. And I mean, these are what passes as men these days. And this is what passes as the BBC. There was another thing as well that they did. The BBC, using this same person, they wanted to do something about young kids in Liverpool, working class kids. They like to be using guns. So this person went down there, got this child, 15, to go and get this gun from somewhere, filmed him holding the gun, and then grasped him up to the police. This boy, this poor boy, who got paid 50 quid by the BBC for doing the gubbins, went to prison for 10 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I can.
This is the BBC. This is the beautiful BBC.
The British Brainwashing Company.
They're very sick. They're very sick. I tell you, if they come at me again...
But the thing about...
I have so much anger towards them. It's unreal.
Being falsely accused is very triggering for people who've had either trauma or abuse, because it's also an interrogation tactic. So, or torture tactic is what they will do. They will charge you, accuse you of doing something you haven't done, and then make you confess to something lesser. So you do a deal with them, and of course, when you do these kind of deals or contracts, you're immediately compromised. It's very difficult.
Well, I'd given them loads of stuff that made great TV. A man called James Hanning interviewed me. It was a really good interview. They didn't want that. They wanted this Sienna Miller thing that I hadn't done. And it did. It triggered me to such an extent. I was driving around in my car and having conversations with this producer, this piece of shit, produced this middle-class, spoiled little prat, saying, I didn't ring, I didn't do anything. And he was literally driving me mad. He would ring me nearly every day from a withheld number, real crafty about that, and tell me that I had ruined Sienna Miller's life. Now, at the same time, Sienna Miller was in the back of Tatler magazine with herself wound round a 25-year-old guy called Oliver that she was shagging. So not really a life ruined. No. And she'd already got millions out of Murdoch. She deserved, to be on the front page for being pregnant, whatever. Yes, get $1 million for doing that, but not falsely accusing someone. And she came out of court and named me and said that I had, because she was on the paper being pregnant, it had forced her into an abortion. So I was culpable for her abortion. And I say this to her, and I suppose she won't ever be listening to this because she's moved on, but you carried out your own abortion, Sienna, not me. Nothing to do with it. I mean, it's really... And also these editors like Rebecca Brooks, I was a working class person, wanting to be a journalist, worked hard, went undercover with the Real IRA, risked my life on Fleet Street, went undercover with gun runners, all this kind of stuff. The editors are interested in celebrities. I couldn't give a damn about a fluffy blonde celebrity. I want to work on hard news and crime, which was what I was there for. But the likes of Rebecca Brooks, I don't know whether she had a lesbian crush on Sienna Miller, but that's down to her. I shouldn't have been asked to work on a story about some fluffy blonde. Not interested, not journalism. But these people like Brooks get into high places. And of course, it's all about money. But it's not journalism. It's not journalism.
Well, I think her and her husband, Charlie, were involved with the Camerons, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to talk about that, but they were up to a bit of swinging, I think.
Oh, right. Well, it's state controlled, the press. I think the Mail are the last ones maybe that are left, but they are going for them. I'm literally, these celebrities and Prince Harry, I've heard that they want to destroy them, that they want to tug them down.
Well, I think that's it's the whole agenda. All the press is all going to go. The royal family are going to be next because they're all disposable. So it's just breaking down any methods of communication get tarnished. So all we've got now really is the internet. You see, I mean that's awful for someone like me as an artist. I can't show in galleries. Books don't really sell. You're on the internet, and then they take the internet down. And if they were to take my channel down, I wouldn't have any means of communication.
Yeah, I mean, we talk to each other, that's good. I mean, the Truth Movement, when it first started, I was happy about it. I was going to talk at one of Miles' little things. Mac was coming, Sarah was coming. It was going to be a good time. It was in the summer. And, of course, Max got murdered. And the whole thing kind of shattered. And I know, Miles, he made that comment to you about you're talking to an asset. Well, yes, obviously, I was used as an asset, but the fact is I'm not now. And it's enlightening for people to hear my testimony, I can't say. So surely it's good that I'm speaking because there'll be someone else out there that will be in the same boat. And then you get together and... they speak and they exchange stories. There was someone on my Facebook the other day who said to me there's someone called Nathan Jones doing podcasts about monarchs, etc. I listened to one and he started speaking about Velvesberg Castle. He said Velvesberg Castle is so big in this and the people in it went off to England and America and a lot of people involved in it have parts of them that can speak German, which really made my blood run cold because sometimes in dreams I catch myself talking in German. Now, I can't speak in German, so it's like strange. And literally, I woke up one time about what I was trying to write down what I'd been saying, because it seemed like a chant, something like Kommen Sie Odin, Kommen Sie Zeus, this kind of thing. And but totally alien to me. I mean, I didn't even learn it at school.
Yeah, but that will relate to your previous incarnation, because, you know, when people have accidents and they suffer brain damage and they're in comas, they come out and they can speak an entirely different language. So it's like the frontal part of your brain has been shut down, and then a previous, you know, another alter takes over. And I'm fascinated by the fact that you could put yourself in these incredibly risky situations, you know, and clearly you're a risk taker, and even doing these journeys. I mean, there's not many people that would venture like that. But I suppose in your real life, that's what you did as well. So,
yeah,
you know, you're used to danger. And I think also another thing that people that have been traumatized or abused is that they have a high danger threshold. They almost seek out danger.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like the news of the world. I mean, there was one time I had to get in a car with a guy who had been taking blondes back to blondes in their late 20s, back to his house and raping them. And he got put in prison and he was out again. He beat them up as well. He was out working as a taxi driver, so we found out. And I was told, get in the car with him. Get in the fucking car with him.
How did you cope with that, though? I mean, you must be. I mean, it's bordering reckless, isn't it? I mean, did you switch identities in order to do that?
I don't know, actually. I definitely, with the Real IRA, when I started having, sex, really, it wasn't really an affair, with one of their leaders, I remember being in his house in South Armagh in the middle of the night, waking up and suddenly being in a different state of mind. And I was completely paranoid, terrified. I thought, what the fuck are you doing? This is a Real IRA member, for God's sake. And looking at him, sleeping and feeling absolutely horrified by myself and thinking, shall I run out of his house and go to the British Army checkpoint if there were, I didn't know if there was, and say, look, I'm mad, please take me back to London, but I'm scared, I've gone crazy, I'm in this man's house, I don't know what the fuck's going on. But I remember going there, but when I went there, I was in a cool state of mind, driven state of mind. There was always that being driven to get as close as you possibly can. That's almost like a kind of a hunger. And when that kind of turned off and I clicked back into normal me that's talking to you now, it was like, whoa, hang on, I'm somewhere where I'm trapped with someone that's dangerous. And that at any moment could decide that I'm spying on them and cut me up, literally just cut me up and just toss me in a grave. I mean, they're very, very dangerous people and they do not like being spied on.
No. Well, this goes beyond dedicated journalism. You know, this is part of the Monarch program, in that you were probably programmed as a sex kitten. You know, it's magic is one. You could be triggered. You could be triggered to go into an altered state. I mean, it's like beyond the call of duty, really.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't even notice it, and it was only him that he said it to me. He said to me, "You're two completely different people." He said, "One is just a mess and depressed and anxious, which is the real me talking to you now. I mean, I am like that." He said, "I'm boring." I suppose I am boring.
Well, you're not boring, Chrissie. Anything but.
He said the other one's really exciting and devil may care. And I did notice over there that I did really weird things. Like I felt that same sexual pull towards a man called John White, who was the head of the UDA. And I rang him up and said, "John, I work for the News of the World. I just arrived here. I got his number from the editor in Belfast." I said, "I've just arrived." And I said, "I think we should get to know each other. Let's meet for coffee." He came along because I said it in a very dominant way. I said to him, "Look, why don't you give me a scenario where you talk peace with the INLA?" And he said, "Oh, I'd never do that, Christine." And I'm like, no, come on, John. Do it. And I was flirting away, touching his hands. And I said, just do a scenario. Just give me a as if you would, what it would be like. So he kind of played along with me. I was making notes, and I went back home and I wrote it up as if it were a story. Now, it's not a story, it's a damn right lie. And I wrote it up. The UDA are going to talk to John White has announced today that he's going to, and it made the front page. I can show you it. It's got my byline on as well.
Yeah, I think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's complete horseshit. Now, why did I do that? I mean, I was really driven to do that. I felt the same weird hunger for John White as I did for the Real IRA commander. Now, you could say, well, maybe I'm just a pervert and into guys like that. But I don't think it was that, because as soon as, after all the flirting with John White, he ended up involved in a really bad kind of interactive thing with the UDA. He shot a man called John Gregg, or got somebody to do. I then went and interviewed him again, did a Sunday Times piece on it, which I can also show you. He ended up having to leave because A company were fighting C company. And I often wonder, did I kick that off with that article and make, like, oh, he's a liability, let's get rid of him. He's talking to the Republicans. Anyway, he ended up fleeing. He gave me an interview first, and I was the only one that he would speak to. And he said to me, oh, I'm in Manchester now, Christine. He said, but you know what? I've got feelings for you, and I'm not with my wife anymore. Can't you and I have a relationship together? And literally, I just spoke to him as if I didn't know him. And I'd been literally all over him for 6 months that I'd been there. And it was just, I talked to him just as if I didn't know him. I said, no, I don't think that. And I didn't have that urge. It had just suddenly been turned off.
Yeah.
He was done. He was finished. He was destroyed. And I often think, did I have, was I instrumental in that, finishing him off? Because he was linked with Johnny Adair. MI6 didn't have control over him. So was that my role? I mean, and the person I targeted in the Real IRA, he also ended up going to prison. They found a hidey hole in his house. I'd been in that house. And you have to look at, was I instrumental but didn't know it?
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing's fascinating, certainly to me. And what I'm wondering is, like, when you were doing this, like, I won't say sex work, but, did you have other relationships at the same time with, like, normal boyfriends?
No, that was it. I didn't have a sexuality because my adoptive father, sexually abused me, and my brother did it as well, my older adoptive brother. He literally used to make me walk up and down at night, do strip teases. I was 6 years old. Yeah. And so my sexuality doesn't exist. I don't have it. So I can't feel attracted to normal men. But I was over the moon to find this part of me had a sexuality. So again, you've got I want to go along with this because I get to experience what other women experience, this feeling of sexuality, but it's not in the part that's talking to you now. It's locked up. It's in that other part.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's what they do when they traffic, these women, Eastern European women, and of course they then abuse them, and then they can trigger them into becoming sex kittens. And there's Russian women that are able to download mind files from men. They've kind of developed techniques of honey trap where if they can sleep with some MP or someone eminent man, while they're having sex, you can download information from his mind. And this is also something I'm very interested in. It's kind of sex magic.
I felt, but I can psychometrize, and I heard about that, and I wondered, was I doing that? Because I had that deep-seated urge to have sex with them, so that's skin to skin. And I also have the ability to read people. So when if I'm doing a reading on somebody, I will hold their wrist where that thick vein goes in your wrist, and I will feel their blood and read their blood. And also there's a way of doing it when you touch their neck. There's a big vein that goes down there, and I'll touch their neck and read that as well. So I wondered, I remember having a relationship with an SAS captain as well, and that was strange it was at the same time as the Real IRA, and that just turned on. And then I went round his house, and then just straight off again. It was the same kind of thing. And interestingly as well, they got me to ring Princess Diana. Now, this has been, I mean, it's online, I've talked about it, it's well known. That was really weird, that whole scenario of getting me to ring her up. She was in her bedroom. They wanted me to keep her on the phone for 10 minutes. They said, I'll just say anything. Really, we just want you to find out if it's her. Now, they knew it was her. She was ringing Hasnat Khan. They ended up, this is Sunday Mirror, they ended up doing a story on that. Hasnat Khan, she was ringing him the whole time from this bedroom number she had. They didn't need me to call her. They've written it up. This man from Byline Times has written it up. Oh, I targeted Diana at her most vulnerable time. No, I didn't. I was ordered to do it, and I just spoke to her. They already had the information. I didn't do anything. But I often wonder, was that some kind of thing where, because I was curious about her, so I was reading her energy as she was speaking to me. So that's kind of odd. I didn't need to make that call. It was already done. The job was done. I didn't need to do it. So there's kind of strange things, strange things like that, like interacting with famous people and politicians and, just being told to go along and meet them. And, we don't need anything else. Just stand down and been touching them and all over them. And you think, well, that was strange too.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
But what I don't like is you end up poor. I mean, I think that's a known thing.
That's right.
I mean, what the actual fuck is that about? I do believe that, I've been controlled into not buying places. I remember going to buy a house and sitting outside in the car and literally seeing pictures of myself in there being depressed, and I literally drove away. So I believe I was controlled to not have money, totally. And that is the most, and I think probably it's because, then you're not believed, you're telling your story, but aren't you some idiot that lives in a rented flat somewhere? Aren't you a fuck up? And suppose you would want to make yourself sound special, bitch. That kind of thing. I think it's because of that, to keep you on the floor as a grade A loser, and then nobody's really going to listen to what you've got to say. I mean, it's repugnant, the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm sure there is some, you've clearly had controllers, whether you knew it or not. I mean, on a quite occult level. Yeah,
I mean, I used to hang around with a guy called Hugh Burnett. We were best friends, and he worked for the BBC, and he used to encourage me quite a lot in my life. And even though people have said you had lots of weird adventures, but he lived in a gorgeous house on Richmond Green. I used to adore going around there. He had a grey wolf on his wall, a real one, the head of it. And when he died, I found out he was MI6. He made an obituary in the Times that said he worked for MI6. I had no idea. He didn't tell me. Now, you'd think someone would boast about that at the very least.
Yeah. Well, see, the intelligence services have for a long time employed lots of psychics and occultists, and this goes back to Blavatsky as well, who claimed that the whole of the English intelligence services had been taken over by Rosicrucians, and I think certainly the Nazis were aware of that as well. So there's been an occult war between these various groups going on for forever, and I'm not really going to go into Nazism, but there's elements of it that were controlled by the British deep state.
Of course, yeah.
We kind of know what went on, but it's probably somewhere you can't really go. Otherwise you get completely cancelled. But the belief systems go back a long way, and the fact is that a lot of them are Freemasonic and Luciferic.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
So, if you can tap into how they can control your mind, I mean, I was very interested in Elizabethan times because I've got some bloodline connection to the guy that funded John Dee. So, I've always been interested in that time, like Shakespeare and Francis Bacon, and I've also time travelled in Venice. So I think when you can access through your DNA past lives, it's really interesting, and also you can change timelines, because this guy called Philip Dick, a science fiction writer, I think is pretty good, who said that we actually live on one timeline that we're aware of, but there's several other timelines running concurrently. So when you think that if you'd stayed with your particular partner at the time, or if you'd married someone else, you'd be living an entirely different life. And I think to a certain extent we are living different lives, and you can slip between these identities. And I quite often used to have dreams where I dream about a girlfriend that I used to live with and that I was still with her. So when I'd wake up, it was quite erotic, because it was almost like I was cheating in my sleep. And then you realise you wake up and you're next to your real wife. So I always found these things really interesting, because the sex programming is something interesting to me, because I was partly brought up by two prostitutes. So I found that really interesting, like the whole transactional nature of it, and how you can disassociate yourself. And one of the prostitutes that I was partly brought up by was a very posh astrologer, and she was servicing Ken Dodd. And I lived in her house when my mother had a breakdown, and she had 6 children by 6 different men, and she was frightfully posh. And she used to go off and Ken Dodd's dressing room, and then come back and sleep with the Coleman. So I kind of was very interested in that whole sexual thing. A lot of my work is about sex and the eroticism of love.
Yeah, I think with that that kind of sexuality, because I've experienced it, it is all-consuming, obsessive. It feels like love because it's all-consuming, and it's predatory as well. Because I've felt it through my veins. You literally feel like, with that Real IRA Commander, I literally made a corkboard and put his picture up on there and just studied it and how to literally get into his pants. And it was a very driven, and obviously back then I didn't know what the hell was going on. It just felt like, I told myself I'm a very ambitious journalist, and of course I did get the good stories, but on them, obviously if you're sleeping with someone, they just have to, it's bloody easy then to get a good story out of them. But I told myself it was journalistic ambition, but that sexuality it's very predatory, and it's weird to feel it flowing through you. It's almost like you want to get hold of them and just, now you'll do this. Now you'll have sex with me because it's what I want to do. It's not personal, and it's not really loving. It's very much a tool to crack them open. And it's very driven. Like, you don't want to get anyone to stand in your way. When you want that, you can be incredibly ruthless. I remember making up things about journalists that had got close to them, because I didn't want them anywhere near that group. I wanted to be the only journalist, because then, I had control. You do have control to a certain extent. And I remember telling them things about other journalists that probably would put their life in danger. I didn't give a damn. But it was like this driven kind of persona, the same that wanted to have sex with them and get them alone. And it always got what it wanted. It would not let anyone stand in its way. And it was exciting to have that much power driving you. It's like driving. It's like being allowed to drive a Ferrari and thinking, oh, this is great. And then suddenly you get it taken off you, and you're back in a Mini Cooper or whatever. And that is my position now. I did experience that, but now I'm someone that hasn't experienced it. But I've got the memory of it, but I haven't experienced it. And it's quite horrible, really. This slavery, I think it's worse than the African-American slavery, because it robs you of your life. I didn't make a normal marriage because I didn't have sexuality to offer a normal person. So I didn't buy the house, build up in the way that a normal person would have. And then you're left with nothing, but yet you're intelligent. So that also is incredibly painful, can bring on a lot of self-hatred. I think if I didn't have my son, I definitely would have killed myself. It's not a nice way to live. It's very soul destroying. It's very horrific. It's not, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, actually.
Mm.
Should we leave it there?
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
I know. Yeah.
It certainly has.